Let's put some Klister on our skis. A lot of people are worried about putting Klister on their skis because they find the stuff kind of messy and awkward to work with. It's really not that complicated to work with Klister, and I'll show you some simple ways of using Klister. Klister is, in fact, the stickiest wax that we have available to us. We can make use of a number of properties that Klister presents us with, including its tenaciousness, its ability to hold on tightly to the bottoms of your skis under very abrasive snow conditions. We can also make use of its ability to grab onto the snow and ice that regular grip wax will not adhere to. We put Klister on our skis in conditions where regular hard grip wax doesn't work. When snow crystals have transformed to the point where wax doesn't work any longer, in other words, the snow crystals have lost their crystalline structure, we use Klister because wax is just not sticky enough to get any adhesion on the transformed snow crystals. There are lots of Klisters on the market, and each of them is designed to address very, very specific conditions. The most important Klisters that we make use of are the green base Klister and the universal Klisters. Those are the most commonly used. There are lots of choices in between these. The green base Klister we can consider as a base binder or primer coating that we will start with on the bottoms of our skis in order to improve the adhesion and durability of other Klisters. It's very important that when you're using Klister that you make sure the tube of Klister is at least warmed to room temperature. If the tube is not at least at room temperature, it's very difficult to get the Klister out of the tube. Most skiers will mark on the bottoms of their skis a Klister pocket. And the Klister pocket is the area that has the highest camber. It's generally an area, if you're not 100% sure where that is on your skis, it's the area that's just slightly smaller than the main wax pocket. So if you have a main wax pocket that extends from here to here, you typically want to set your Klister pocket a little bit shorter, typically from there to there. Okay? But with a little bit of experience, you can actually determine where your Klister pocket is by marking the highest point in the camber. So we want to apply the Klister as thinly and as evenly as possible. And there's lots of different techniques. I like to just simply start and press the Klister and press a bead of Klister on either side of the groove, trying to get it as thinly and as evenly applied as possible. Okay, so we put it on this side of the groove and we put it on this side of the groove as well. At room temperature, it's kind of tricky to get Klister to spread evenly. That's where a waxing iron comes in handy. And put your waxing iron at a relatively low temperature, typically a temperature about 110 degrees Celsius, and we can just use the warmth of that iron to spread the Klister and help it soak into the base of the skis. So that first layer of Klister is applied as thinly as we can get away with. And remember, this is a primer layer. This is what's going to help other Klisters last longer on the bottoms of the skis. Okay? Now that that's warmed, I can now spread that with the use of my Klister spreader. And although we're not worried about the groove in the center of the skis, we really don't want to fill it up with Klister. And it looks like I'm almost removing all the Klister, but I'm not. I'm just simply spreading it and trying to get it to soak into the base of the skis as evenly and as thinly as possible. Another way of applying the Klister or smoothing the Klister is to simply take your thumb and spread it with your thumb. Now, some people are afraid to touch Klister, but there's really nothing to be worried about. It's just sticky stuff. And it's just fairly easy to spread evenly by using your thumb or the heel of your hand. Let that first layer of Klister cool and set into the base of the skis. After that has cooled and set, we're then ready to apply our skiing Klister. And this is the Klister that's suited to the specific conditions of the day. And as I said, there are lots of choices to be made based on the snow condition. So let's apply it, again, using the same technique. There are lots of methods of doing this. We're actually trying to form a separate layer on the outer surface of the ski above the layer of the base Klister. When we put Klisters on, we want them to form independent layers, ideally. And that's what will happen if we've properly set our base Klister. In other words, if the base Klister has cooled sufficiently, you can cool it by putting your skis outside, or if you're in the situation where you've heated the base Klister, just cooling it to room temperature is usually sufficient in order to allow it to set up as a separate layer. And let's simply just spread that universal Klister on the surface. Okay. And we're really trying to ensure that this is a separate layer on top. I'm going to put on a layer of silver Klister just so that you can see the distinctiveness of the separate layer on top. Now, silver Klister is a particular type of Klister that has aluminum particles in it that allows it to reject dirt. And we just simply spread it just like any other Klister, and we're really trying to form a separate and distinct layer on top of our base Klister. And now I'm going to spread that using our Klister spreader, and just very light pressure is all it takes to allow that Klister to spread out on top of the base Klister. And the silver is actually another type of universal Klister. It's best suited in conditions where there's lots of dirt in the snow. The aluminum particles in this Klister take the edge off the stickiness of the Klister in order to reduce the adhesion of dirt particles. I'm going to clean the groove. And then flatten out that Klister into a nice uniform film. And the key thing here is that we formed a separate layer on top of the base Klister, and we want this all now to set up and freeze. If the outside air temperature is below freezing, just simply set your skis on a rack so that they can cool to the outside air temperature. If the air temperature is above freezing, in order to freeze the Klister, set the skis close to the ground, in other words, facing the ground without actually touching the snow, and use the refrigerating surface, ice or snow, to freeze the Klister. And we're now ready to ski.